Hi everyone, welcome back to She Stitchin'. This is Melanie, and this video is just going to be a concept video on showing how to change colors when you're working in the middle of a work. So first what I'm going to do is show you something that I'll just go over really quickly is how to change color when you're doing normal stitches. So this is something that's really popular in making like buffalo plaid or just accenting certain parts of the patterns, or it's super popular in tapestry crochet. So here I have a pattern I did recently from someone that I met through social media. She has this pattern, so I'll link it in the bio. But you can make basically anything using this technique. And then it is a little bit different when you get to doing cable crochet, and let me show you why. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say about using this technique is that it is very important that your yarns match in width and elasticity. So it is important that your yarn is going to be from the same brand and the same line. So you can see here I have the sample I'll be using today. It's going to be in my off-white and my pale green in the Caron 1 pound. So these yarn have the same stretchiness, the same elasticity, and the same width as each other. So if I was going to sub one of these out for like a Caron Simply Soft or something, those are going to be thinner yarns. The Caron Simply Soft just ends up being thinner, so it wouldn't work. Or if I was using like a Caron Cotton Cake or something like that, even though it's the same brand and it's also, you know, a 4 in width, that doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly the same. There's a little bit of leeway. So it is important that your yarns match. And then like the other sample I have here in the background, it's a Red Heart Super Saver in ombre line, and it's the scuba color and the cocoa color, and it's important you can see that these yarn are the same. Otherwise the fabric that you create isn't gonna be it won't really lay flat. It'll start to bubble because it really affects the width and the height of your stitches, kind of more than I ever realized before I started doing this type of crochet. So let's go ahead and get started. So normally when you're carrying yarn, you actually carry it on the bottom. And I know that it is always going to show a little bit. So you can, if I pick my stitches here and I look in between, you can sometimes see that lighter gray coming out. So it is always going to show a little bit, especially if you're using a color that contrasts a lot. So you can almost, it's never going to be hidden completely. If you stretch out the blanket, you're always going to be able to see it. But, normally when you're looking at it, it's not that visible. Because we definitely don't want to cut the yarn and tie it every time you change color, because that's just not really a structurally sound blanket, and that's just too many ends to weave in. Let's be honest. Nobody likes to do that. So today I'm going to be showing you on the sample here. The reason why I'm making this video is so that if you're interested, you can do this pattern of mine with 2 colors. So the first row here is actually going on the wrong side of the pattern, and you can see that we have that turning chain is in my base color, and the second stitch in is going to be in the second color, which is kind of a tricky situation. So the way that I got around this is I just did a standing crochet into that stitch. So we're going to, normally you would skip 3 and start here, but this time I'm just going to do a standing crochet. So I'm going to start with a simple knot, a slip knot, and I'm just going to do a standing double crochet. So I'm going to skip 3 and go where I normally did, and I'm going to just insert my hook, yarn over, pull, loop through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then normally you would just yarn over and pull through these 2, but I'm also going to pull through this off-white yarn so that I can bring it through for the rest of the pattern. Okay, and then I'm going to not use that on my next stitch. So I really recommend that you are comfortable with your pattern, whatever pattern you're doing, before you start changing colors, I'm sorry, because always what you're doing when you're switching colors, you're thinking, okay, what's my next stitch going to be? So you can see here I start off with 2 colors, or 2 stitches in one color. Then I'm going to switch over to that background color. So normally when we carry yarn on normal stitches, we carry it down here at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into the chain, and then also I'm just going to carry my thread or my yarn just right there, okay? And then you just do a stitch like you normally would. So my next stitch, like I said, it's always important to know what your next stitch is going to be. So my next stitch is a regular stitch in my other color. So what I'm going to do is the last pull through of this stitch, I'm going to change colors. Okay, and what that's going to do is it will finish the stitch with that teal, and it sets me up to do the next stitch in my next color. So now I'm going to do 4 stitches in my background color. So I'm just going to do 4 double crochet. And as you can see, you're just going to insert that into the chain and kind of hold this thread or yarn like it's part of that base chain there, okay? So just hold on to that and it will continue along with us. So this is going to be 4 stitches. So I'll do the first 3. Okay, so now before I start my 4th stitch, I know that after this I'm going to change color. So I'm not going to finish this stitch off. Now at this point, what I normally do is I just pull on this a little bit to make sure that there's no yarn bubbles down in here. So right now you can see the yarn is going nice and straight. Sometimes when we're crocheting with 2 yarn, something like this might happen, where this might bubble out. And then that's going to look pretty hideous later on because that color is going to be showing through. So it is important that you just tug that yarn gently so that it shows. Okay, we're not doing this to keep the stitches close together. So you don't want to pull it too tight and then it makes the stitches curve in. So make sure you don't pull it too tight, but you do want to tug on that a little bit, okay? And then, so my next stitch, I'm going to do a color chain for that. So I'm going to switch over to my teal yarn, my pale green yarn, and I'm going to pull that through, okay? And then I'm going to pull this down so that it comes back down to the chain, back down to the base of my stitches, and just keep going like I was before. So let me finish out this row, and I'll come back to you and show you how to do this with cable stitches or front and back post stitches. So if I call it a cable stitch in this pattern, that's what I'm referring to, is a back or a front post. Okay, so here we've got to the end of the row, and I'm just changing colors every 4 stitches, and then at the end we're going to have 3 in the end color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this teal yarn, I'm going to let it hang out here. I'm going to pull it towards me because this is the back side, and I'm going to let it hang out here so I can pick it up on my next row so that I don't have to worry about hiding it up the sides. Okay, so then I'll just finish this off with 3 double crochet real quick. And then I'm going to do a chainless standing double crochet here at the end of my row, which I've taught in a lot of videos, so I'll just do it really fast. But if you're interested in learning how to do that with a detailed video, I'll put a link to Tamara from Moogly, has a really cool video. I think she invented the stitch, so I'll put a link on a tutorial that she did just on this if you're interested. Okay, so we pull it up to the height of a double crochet, wrap it around, insert your hook, yarn over, pull loop through, and pull through 2, and then we have a great stitch there, a great standing stitch that doesn't look like a chain and it doesn't separate from the edge of the work. Okay, and then so let's flip this back over. So then we're going to have the first 3 stitches are all the same color. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Now before I finish this stitch off, I want to think to myself, what's our next stitch? And I need to change color on my next stitch, and what kind of stitch is it? So let me show you. Normally we would switch color just by filling this through and finishing off the stitch and leaving this hang. But if you do that when you're using post stitches, this is the difficult thing. You're going to end up having these hanging snag hazard things in the back. And we don't really want a blanket that's like that unless, unless you're putting a backing on it. So what we're going to do is I'll show you how I figured out how to carry the thread without having these horrible, not attractive snag hazards, okay? So what we're going to do is if your next stitch is a post stitch, so far I was showing you how to carry the yarn on regular stitches. This is how you carry the yarn on a post stitch. You're going to yarn over and pull through both of the colors. So now I have both of my colors on my hook. Okay, now the next 4 stitches are, let me see. Let me try to remember my pattern here. Yeah, so the next 4 stitches are all going to be front post stitches. And we're going to start to pull that out, right? So I'm going to do 4 front post stitches. So the first one, we'll go ahead and do that. You go all the way around the post, right? I'm assuming that you already know how to do this. Okay, now my next stitch is going to be another post stitch. So I'm going to carry that yarn up at the top to make sure that that comes over, okay? And we're going to do that so that we have 4 of these stitches that are this color. The other thing is when you're switching, well, I'll show you that in a few minutes. Make sure that when you're starting on a crochet like this, to keep your yarn untangled as you go. Don't put your yarn through any holes or anything, otherwise it's going to be a huge mess. Okay, and then, okay, so this will be my last stitch in this color and my last post stitch. So the stitch after this is going to be a regular stitch in my other color. So I know that I'm going to have to change color, and I'm going to be changing the type of stitch I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop carrying that yarn through at the top. Okay, so now I'm just going to switch to my other color, and I'm going to drop that pale green color down so that I can carry it for the normal stitches. So like before, we're going to be carrying the yarn down below. So you carry the yarn on the top for post stitches, and you carry it on the bottom for regular stitches. Okay, and then we do have 4 regular double crochets here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and as I start my 4th stitch, I'm going to start to think in my head, what is my next stitch? So my next stitch is going to be a different color, so I'm going to get ready for a color change, and it's going to be a post stitch, which means I'm going to be carrying my color at the top. So I'm going to use both of the colors at the top of this stitch to get ready for my next stitch. There we go, and now I'm going to do my 4 post stitches, front posts. So we go all the way around the post, 2, and then my next stitch is going to be a post stitch, so I'm going to carry that yarn at the top. There we go. 2, my next stitch is a post stitch, so I'm going to keep carrying that up at the top. There we go. My next stitch is a post stitch, so I'm going to do the same thing. Alright, and now my next stitch is a regular stitch, so I'm not going to pull my pale green through the top. I'm going to let it drop down to the bottom and just pull through my off-white. Okay, now at this point, you probably are going to have a few twists in your carrying thread. So I like to do is just loop it around each other as I'm going so that it doesn't turn into a tug-of-war or anything like that. So just go ahead and untangle that a few times as you go, and you're just basically picking up the yarn and moving it over the other color. Okay, so now I have 4 regular double crochets, so you should get the hang of this, and I'll do one more row. So I'll meet you at the end of this row, and then I'll go up to the second row with you, or the third row with you. Okay, so I finished almost the end of this row. I just have 2 stitches left, so you can see if you're doing the pattern with me, I did 4 post stitches, 4 regular stitches. Now I'm going to do my last post stitch of this row. So let me grab that teal thread out. 1, 2, and then the last stitch of this row is just a regular double crochet. So I'll do the pull through with the white or the off-white, and then instead of dipping this down, I'm going to leave it up high so I can pick it up on the next row. And I'm going to make sure that I hold that yarn behind on the wrong side of the work because I don't want it to show from the front. Alright, so I'm going to finish off with the double crochet here into the turning chain. So go through that. Sometimes the turning chains are hard to get through, right? Alright, there we go. So now I've done the first 2 rows. Now the second row, it's going to be a lot of color changing because we're going to be changing color every 2 stitches because we're going to be inserting those background pieces to start to shift where the posts are going. So our first 2 stitches of this row are going to be in the background color. So I'm going to go ahead and do that chain stitch double crochet. Okay. And then I'm going to pull up my blue and get it ready because I'll need it in a second here. Okay, so we're going to go through just this, you'll just go through all of that there. And then my next stitch is going to be a post stitch in the different colors, so I'm going to change, and I'm going to keep that off-white up top. Okay. All right, and now we're going to start. My next 2 stitches are going to be back post stitches. So we're just going to go around, and then my next stitch is also going to be a post stitch, so I'm going to pull that last through with both of the yarn. Now this is a post stitch, and then after that's going to be a double crochet. Oops. So regular post stitch, and then it's going to switch to double crochet, so I'm just going to pull this blue down and just pull through the white because my next one's a double crochet. Okay, and then we have a skip 1 in the pattern and 2 double crochets here in the middle. Oops. So you got to make sure that you put that yarn there. 1 and 2. So before we got to this row, you might have been thinking, oh, but carrying the yarn at the top, you can see the colors on the top. But once you actually go back and start putting those post stitches, it doesn't show because the top of those stitches don't show. So as long as you are doing everything correctly, the top of those post stitch don't show because you're going down lower, right, into the cable. So it's not going to show. So for example, I'll show you again. Oops, see, I should have I should have finished this stitch off with pulling through both of them because I'm switching to the blue. All right, so let's pull that sage up, or sorry, pale green, my teal. There we go. All right, and then I skip 1 and I go and I do 2 post stitches. So you can see now this white part. So if this was the front of the work, right now you can see the white part, but once we go into that post stitch, it's not going to show anymore. Okay, my next stitch also is going to be a post stitch, so I'm going to carry both of the yarn on the top. So I'll do 2 of these just, and then my next stitch after this one is going to be a double crochet. So I'll drop the blue down. There we go. So when I know my next stitch is a double crochet, I'm going to drop it down. So there you can see once you put those post stitches on, it's covering up. So here, these next stitches, you might be thinking, oh, that's going to show. But here you can see it doesn't show once you put that next stitch on there. And then we have 2 double crochets in the middle. 1. And 2. My next stitch is going to be a post stitch, so I'm going to pull that tail through. There we go. And then I have 2 back posts onto those cables. So you can see here where the white's showing, and now we're going to do a stitch to cover that up. And my next stitch is a cable, so I'm going to do that last pull through with both of the colors. All right, and then do a cable again. So this did take a couple tries to perfect, and there was quite a few times where I would have to go back and be like, oh, I messed up my carrying thread right there, and I would have to go back and redo it. So it is it is what it is. And then my next stitch is going to be double crochet, so I only pull through the 1 yarn. There we go. So there you have it. You should be able to do the rest now. You just always have to be thinking about what stitch is next and where can I leave the yarn so that it doesn't make a mark. So if you guys have any questions with this, please ask down below. And I hope that this helps you. I definitely recommend being familiar with the pattern before you give it a go, because it can get very confusing, because you're not only you're dealing with manipulating the cables, but you're also dealing with manipulating 2 different colors of yarn. All right, so I really like the colors. Teal is definitely my favorite color, and I love how this is turning out. So let's see. 1, and then my stitch after this is a double crochet, a regular double crochet, so I'm just going to drop my teal and hook up my off-white to do the pull down. And then I got 2 double crochets. And my next stitch after those 2 double crochets is a back post double crochet, so I'm going to pull through both the colors. So before you do your stitches, you have to think, okay, what's my next stitch? Am I color changing? Is it a post stitch or a regular stitch? There we go. Oops. So my next stitch after this is another post stitch, so I need to make sure to carry that off white up top. All right. There we go. I don't think you guys should have any more questions, but if you do, leave them down below. Oops. See, I wasn't paying attention. My next stitch is just a regular double crochet. So make sure to keep on, if your yarn starts to get twisted, to just move your easiest ball of yarn to fix that up. And there you go. It does get easier the more you go, but I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, comment down below. Please make sure to check me out on Facebook or Instagram and TikTok. And if you have like a specific question about a certain part of the pattern, messaging me on Facebook. You can use pictures and stuff, so that's why I really like that. And I'll leave all the links in my bio, so please make sure to check them out. And I will see you next time, where we will be doing the raised harvest stitch, which I don't have within reach right now, but it's a much easier stitch next week. So see you guys soon. If anybody asks where I am, just tell them she's stitching.